So what I want to do in today's video is I want to talk about just a tiny alteration, a tiny tweak that you can make that will have a massive influence on your golf swing. Now, you've got to bear in mind, when it comes to making a swing change, you need to be careful with your approach towards it, because I tend to think that most students that I meet and I get the opportunity to work with paint this idea that they just need to do lots of repetition. If I do lots of repetition, Russ, of the same sort of thing, I'm going to get it. I'm not so sure that's how it works. Repetition will build a sense of familiarity, okay? So if you are very good and you want to keep being very good and you want to keep repeating the same thing, then repetition, heading down to the driving range, working on hitting lots of shots, is going to be the best thing for you. Hence why with pros, the harder they tend to work, the more they tend to allocate time to play, you'll generally find the better that they are going to get. But for most amateurs and golfers that are trying to in particular make a swing change, maybe that's not the right approach, because repetition and heading to the range and hitting lots of shots doing the same sort of thing is just going to bring the same results. So what you have to do is, I like to say, is shift the narrative. Ask yourself questions of things. And one of my favorite things to shift the narrative, and I've been doing it recently in lessons and I've talked about it before on the channel, but it's very important. And when we know lots of greats, like Mo Norman was a great, Ben Hogan was a great. I like these golfers because they got their own sort of swing. They did the same sort of thing. And Mo Norman, as I linked to a recent video, talked about this drill where you should try and keep the club traveling in a straight line for as long as possible. Lots of people like that because it was simple. And I want to elaborate on that. So what I tend to do with a lot of my students, I meet students that come for golf lessons and they are too scoopy. They don't turn through the ball. They get too scoopy. They're too square with the body. And the club, sometimes it will get to the back of the ball. But a bit like that one, you can hear the weight's also a little bit heavy. And I want students to be hitting the ball with open body and shaft lean. So, you've got different ways to do this. With some students, I get them doing drills where I get them rotating the body. I get them the feeling of staying more downward. With other students as well, or with inside those sessions, all I'll do is I'll say, look, if I set you an objective, let's move this golf ball for a sec. If I set you an objective to hit the ground in the center of your stance, these golfers would be able to sort of do that, okay? If I then set them the objective and I said, look, okay, I want you to position the club in the same way you just did, but this time I want you to get the club to hit the ground opposite your left ankle, they wouldn't be able to do it. And they would sort of go, well, how do you do that? They would struggle. Even if they tried to move the hands further forward, they would struggle. And that's why I think it's such a simple, effective tweak to make. Whether you choose to look at this area, whether you choose to get a feeling of swinging through, what I'm trying to say in this video is the way you are going to get that club and control your low point, so you are striking, let's bring this ball back into play, so you are striking the ball, and then you are continuing to strike down in towards the turf, is the way you're going to do that is you need to have that ability to get your low point opposite your left ankle. And this is what, again, a lot of these greats, Mo Norman talks about. The way you're going to do that is by making sure, first and foremost, that you are staying downward facing. So as I put this club through my sternum here, see the way it's pointing downward, okay? If it points upward, I'm going to be too far back and I can't control that low point. If I'm more downward, see the way now I can get that club to strike down on the back of the golf ball. And I'm going to have that ability. See the way I'm hitting here, I do it slowly. Club's hitting now opposite my left ankle because I'm downward. Now, the scary thing for most golfers is when you say downward, they'll go, oh, well, okay, downward. And then, am I going to hit the ground here? No, right? The reason why the answer is no is because, look, if I put the club across my shoulders here, as I go downward, here I am, and then as I keep rotating, see the rotation. If you look at my sternum here, it points downward, but if you look at my left shoulder, it's going back. So what you need to do is you need to practice hitting the ground opposite your left ankle. But if you do it like this, then you need to make sure you keep turning through, because as I keep rotating, my left shoulder goes back up and behind me, which creates this shallowing motion, which is what all the greats have in common. They have good rotation, because the rotation is what creates the shallowing. But what I'm trying to say is you need to shift that intent, and you need to start concentrating your attention on having the ability to strike the ground opposite your lead ankle, because that's what's going to give you that ability to compress the ball. And that's the one thing that all the greats know. And whatever context we paint this in, we know that as we come in towards this downswing, like so, we know that from this position, that club handle starts to go up, like so, and then as the club drops down, that's what gives us that ability to be able to retain shaft lean and create a nice shallow divot. What I'm saying is all these things are happening as a byproduct of rotation. So it's a great drill. Hopefully this elaboration on a very simple idea just helps you make a little bit more sense. And what I'm saying is when you're practicing, don't just go there hitting loads of balls. Start progressively trying to strike the ground further and further forward, because that requires better angles coming in towards the ball. I'll see you soon.